With the growth of Madras, newer villages were added to the city in the 18th century, such as Egmore, Periamet, Wepri, Pudupet, Persuvakam, Royapettah, etc. Almost all of these came to have a significant Anglo-Indian presence. Royapettah was perhaps the smallest. Many of its landmarks are familiar to us and dear to those who have stayed at Madras 14. Royapettah Hospital, Satyam Theatre, the YMCA, and Pilot Theatre, which screened good English movies until the 80s. We spoke to Mario Loss, who lived opposite Pilot Theatre for 20 years before moving to Perth.
Yeah, there was a few moments where we went to Pilot Theatre in Sapphire, and I remember Ivan and Decoder coming to the theatre itself and asking us to come back home, Mark Pillay and myself. But anyway.
Did you visit Pilot Theatre for movies?
Yes. Oh, that was nice. I think I went for the movie Exhaustus, or that one was pretty small. I don't know what was to be scared, but I remember the sound was pretty amazing for Pilot Theatre.
The theatre has now been reduced to a rubble. We met with a non-Anglo-Indian resident of Royapettah.
Love to live life, play games, and the dancing and the singing and all this stuff. You know, Anglo-Indians and hockey go together. So I've got a lot of hockey at the old Egmore Stadium. And a lot of Anglo-Indians who used to play for Southern Railway, ICF, you know, Jimmy Carr and Charlie Huggins, all good friends of mine in the 70s when I used to watch them play. To me, really, they sort of epitomize the Anglo-Indian qualities, which is to work hard and live well.
Basically, they are very, very happy-go-lucky people. We enjoy their company so much. You know, they keep us so lively. The food, the clothes, the music, the dance, we can dance. You know, we really miss that. Believe me, they used to, you know, boost us, the kind of, you know, we say the Josh, we used to get it from them. And so disciplined.
Very good officers, good sportsmen, very good with the men, extremely friendly and professional. And they had no axe to grind. You know, unlike Indian officers, many of us unfortunately did have, favorites, and parochialism was there among the North and South and East. With the Anglo-Indians, there was no such. They did their job, they lived simple lives.
But let's get back to the subject of field hockey. I asked Alan Coyne, who has spent the better part of his life playing hockey, who his heroes were.
My hero would be my dad, but although I didn't see him play, but all my uncles were hockey players. That was the Clare brothers. And of course, my aunt's husband, Jimmy Carr, was a great influence on our hockey playing days when we were young.
During his career, Alan has played for TI Cycles, ITC, ICF, and most of all for the State Bank of India. He is one among a handful of Anglo-Indians in Madras who still play for the veterans team. Anglo-Indian contribution to the game of field hockey has been phenomenal. The Indian national team, once dominated by Anglo-Indians, was unbeatable in world hockey for several decades of the last century. Australia is one country that has benefited the most from their skills, thanks in main to players who migrated from Bengal, formed clubs in Melbourne, Sydney and Perth, and taught the Australians the fine art of the game. We had a word with Loftus Callanan, who played for Campion School in Trichy in his youth.
I was a hockey player, I was captain of the hockey team, and I won the championship in seniors in my final year, so that's one of my strengths, athletics and hockey.
Were you able to take this hockey to Melbourne, where you had a chance of playing the game in Melbourne?
Yes, I did play for a local club, hockey, for a few years I played. And one of the things that turned off hockey in Melbourne was they play in winter. And winter, it's get rain and cold, but they still keep playing. And in India, if it rains, they cancel the match, but they don't cancel.
From Madras, the contribution of Charles Godoyne of Wepri, who migrated in 1970, is notable. He helped start the Harlequin Hockey Club in Perth. His 3 sons played for Western Australia, with Paul especially going on to play in 2 Olympics and also serving as Australian national coach.
I could say that the same Anglo-Indians who have played with me in my younger days, who have migrated to Australia, are still playing the game in Australia. They still enjoy the game. Matter of fact, I've got an unofficial invitation to come there and play in Australia in the Senior Veterans League. I'm giving it some serious thought.
This fitness consciousness was there, especially in the Anglo-Indian community, because you would see, in my time at least, there would be a lot of Anglo-Indians. I know a lot of my friends, I know some of my friends in the 9th standard, they failed 4 times. So studies was not given that much importance, but that guy would be a super athlete. So the school would still keep him, because they know if this guy goes out, he'll win a medal, and that will be gold medal, state level. So something or other an Anglo-Indian was doing. Either he was running, he was boxing, he was hockey. We used to be the best. Football, athletics, something or other we used to keep doing, and we would keep doing this morning and evening.
Timothy runs an upscale gym in Nungabakkam and is personal trainer to many a celebrity.
In our days, if we found somebody who had a very good body, we would go to him and ask him, give me your workout. We wouldn't ask him what supplement you take, what you're eating. You tell him what workout you do, how many sets you do, how many reps you do, how much you lift. Today nobody's asking about that because that's hard work. So fitness is very, very important. It's, as I said, it's as good as brushing your teeth. Every day you have to have at least 30 to 35 minutes of some kind of fitness, and at least twice a week of strength training, which is weight training.
Dieting by itself is of no use. It has to be combined with exercise if you want to see results. And secondly, there's no such thing as a crash diet. The human body cannot be turned on and off with a switch. Everything takes its time.
Because I do a lot of training in the gym. I'm one of those fitness freaks. And my theme right now is to reach out to senior citizens and say, it's not over until the Lord says it's over. So you can keep on going, and you have to make sure your body is fit and keep healthy. You owe that to God, because you're the temple of God. So that's how I look at it.
Early to bed, early to rise has been Timothy's motto.
Like I get up every day between 4:30 and 5. I have my black coffee first thing in the morning. So this I do every day, Monday to Sunday. And then my wife is very helpful, stands by me. She makes my same breakfast I have again every day. My breakfast is unique 365 days a year, same. Like I have my egg whites, my sweet potato, my oats. This is there with me every day.
I had one further question on the subject of hockey.
What do you think is the reason now youngsters are not playing the game? Something is some tradition, some skills have not been passed on down the years.
I wouldn't say the skills are not passed on, because if you give an Anglo-Indian boy a hockey stick, he would take to the game immediately. It's a natural flair for us. But I think the interest has been lost, and encouragement from the school level, the grassroots level itself, the encouragement is lacking.
There is no doubt that cricket has superseded hockey in terms of patronage and promotion, and unlike earlier, banks, corporate houses or the railways hardly recruit hockey players into their sporting teams. But let's get back to Royapettah, where the number of Anglo-Indian families in the 1970s was perhaps not more than 40, and their interaction with one another was mostly confined to 2 or 3 locales: the Presentation Church on Jani Jan Khan Road, St. William's School on Peters Road, and Church Park at Mount Road. Anglo-Indian girls in great number have, over the years, studied at St. Ursula's in Church Park, and they fondly remember the Irish nuns of the Presentation Convent.
Yeah, we had Mother Basil and Sister Jude and Sister Mark. Many nuns were, all Irish nuns. 1 or 2 Indian nuns were there then.
Any Anglo-Indian nuns you remember?
One was there, Sister Pamela. She was an Anglo-Indian nun. But she didn't look like an Anglo-Indian, she looked like a foreigner because she was very fair.
But I did have a cousin, Avril Borthwick, who studied with me in St. Ursula's, and we were great mates. and used to sit next to each other at the dining table and then walk around the compound saying our rosary.
Mr. Pattabhiraman, I think he was the taught us office management, and it was mostly I did the shorthand and the typing. At that time, that was one of the groups wherein was secure the Anglo-Indians a job as a secretary or any so. And that Ursula's that I studied at the year 11 and 12 helped me, once I finished year 12, get a job straight away.
Some girls did their teachers' training in the institute on the campus.
Absolutely fulfilling, 100%. I am so proud of Church Park, and especially of our training mistress, who was Sister Josepha. She was an Irish lady, training mistress. And the training she gave us, I don't think anybody else, any other training mistress has given to anybody else. Because whatever we taught, well, we were outstanding, appreciated by everybody, by our students, by the headmistress, by staff, for what we did in the school.
How many years was your teacher's training for? Was it for
2 years.
Okay. You had other Anglo-Indian girls studying?
Oh, lots. All of them. All of them, as a matter of fact, were Anglo-Indians.
But how many?
And there are two batches. There's a senior batch and a junior batch. And so each batch used to have about 25.
June Beale also trained at Church Park and went on to teach at Good Shepherd School in Nungambakam for 28 years.
And I enjoyed my teaching over there. I taught in the primary section, and we were so many Anglo-Indians. Actually, the kindergarten and the primary school were mainly Anglo-Indian teachers.
So you all shared some good time together?
Yeah, we did share a lot of good times together. We were good in our teaching. In fact, the parents used to always say we want Anglo-Indian teachers as our child's teacher, because we had a good command of the English language. We took great care in the curriculum and convey to our children what had to be taught to them. We would sympathize or empathize with the children, and at the same time we would have that classroom discipline, which Anglo-Indian teachers were noted for.
And when I took over here, 3 Ds occurred to me: my personal decency, the decorum of my team, and the general discipline of my school. Discipline is our hallmark, discipline is our religion, and a disciplined life is akin to godliness and to Christianity.
Alongside discipline, one also needs an understanding approach, especially in today's times.
Being a teacher and teaching little kids, I didn't want to move up because I found my speciality with the smaller group of kids, how I can bring out the talent. Because the current situation, there are so many single mothers. If you look at the children now, they are coming with so many single mothers, and the children are not able to concentrate on their studies. Creativity is as important as literacy today.
Mention must be made of the Holy Angel School situated at nearby T Nagar. Youngsters today may not know that it once had a popular boarding for Anglo-Indian girls and was a much sought after school.
My second language was Tamil, but we struggled with that a lot. We had, I remember my Tamil teacher's name, Mrs. Krishnaswamy, her name was, and she was also a maths teacher. So we liked her for that, because during our maths classes in between, we'll try to sneak in some of the Tamil as well.
We were from the first standard right till the 10th. We were nearly about 300, 400 girls.
You had Anglo-Indian girls studying in the boarding from the first standard?
Yes, from the first standard. Because my younger sisters all studied with me in the first standard.
And your teachers, you had Anglo-Indian teachers?
Yes, we had Mrs. Xavier. She was a very good teacher. I think now only she was 110 or something when she passed away.
1 or 2.
Yeah, 1 or 2 something. Then we had Mrs. Isant Nigley. Then another teacher was there. Mrs. Audrey Romeo.
I remember some of my fellow students. There was a girl, Rita Brisen. She used to be with me in Holy Angels. Then Shirley Johnson. It was unique in the sense that we had dormitories with beds, with cots, which we didn't have in St. Ursula's. We had to sleep on the floor. But in Holy Angels, we each had a bed for ourselves. And I think the food too was a little more decent.
In Royapettah, hardly a handful of families remain today. One of them is the famous Flory Daily Combine on Andy Street. A prominent member of the family, Keith Flory, is associate editor of The Statesman in New Delhi.
Mrs. Daly are now staying over there in Mayor Sivraj Street, and we have been pretty close to them. They invited us for the Silver Jubilee anniversary. They got a boy and a girl, and the girl, Jermaine, she and my daughter Namrata are very, very good friends.
My house was always called the Ark, and it still is to this day, because it's a huge house. It's about 14 rooms. The kitchen wasn't really a room as such. It was an extension of a veranda. And then Dad told me that was the oven of those days, and everything was actually cooked inside these wood ovens. Sunday was a big thing, so we were a very small community in Royapettah. I would say to a maximum of about 10 Anglo-Indian families.
We would take the cycle rickshaws and come to church, but if we were early, I used to walk it and Mommy will go with my two sisters.
Sundays used to be really special for us. I mean, we used to go in a huge gang. We used to walk a distance. We used to go in a huge gang for Mass, and then after that we go for breakfast. The whole lot of us occupy almost that half the hotel.
Much before I was born, my aunt Tessie Fernandez, she started heading the choir there and bringing up the children, and then passed it on to another very responsible family, the De Cruz family, who were pillars of the church. But slowly everything started fading away.
And being in the choir was exciting. It was not like, I sing, you don't sing, I sing. It wasn't a competition. It was just, we loved doing it.
Indeed, almost every major church in the city had an Anglo-Indian choir, if one could put it that way, and as far as some locales are concerned, still do. Of course, the English-speaking community has grown in many parishes, and consequently the composition of the choir. And this would include Malayalis, Tamil Nadars and Telugus, to cite a few examples. Thanks to mixed marriages across communities gaining increasing acceptance and the effect of the Indian diaspora, in many Indian families, English is the language spoken at home. The modern Anglo-Indian tends to gel well with members of other Indian communities, no matter what the caste or religious background.
Anglo-Indians are known for their friendliness, and that was one of the things which has always struck me, that they are happy-go-lucky and cheerful and friendly to all. And they have merged so well with the Indian fabric, and yet they keep their identity. So all this has always impressed me, and it is nice to be around with them because they are straightforward and simple and they enjoy their lives. So I've always liked them, and I've known many of my friends are.
Can you name some of your friends?
One of them, my favorite, is Maria, and from her I've learned to laugh through life. And there have been friends like someone called Althea was always there in my mind. She was very beautiful, actually. She belonged to my school.
In Royapettah, we pass by the police station and notice that it has recently been given a complete makeover. Felix Daly remembers what his grandmother told him.
The head inspector was an Anglo-Indian who used to come on a horse, and that was their means of commuting. So they would ride down my street, and they lived in the street. Andy Street, as it was called back in the day, today is Mayor Sivraj Street, was packed with Anglo-Indian houses on either side.
In the past, Anglo-Indians served in the Madras police in great number. Eric Stracey, who served as the first Director General of Police of Tamil Nadu, was perhaps the most well known.
In policing, Richard, we were sort of poster boys, the community. We didn't have to do the, dirty thing, catching criminals, beating them, extracting confessions and all. We attended to the ceremonial parades and escorted VIPs. Like, me, I escorted Indira Gandhi during the anti-India agitation. and Anadore during the World Tamil Conference, and escorting, then outriding. Shah Viran came.
Why were
And
you
those-
chosen? Why were you chosen for these roles?
Mostly because, we had a little looks and all that thing. Me, more than me was Gregory and all. He looked like a white man. All passed away, man, all gone to be with the Lord. Not one barring Jimmy Robson.
Denzel retired in 1997 after having served for 37 years in the Tamil Nadu Police. In 1971, he was awarded the Kendall Medal for saving a young boy from drowning. Other Anglo-Indians, such as Trevor Winter, Eustace Pereira, and Rex Rodrigues, served as Assistant Commissioners of Customs. B.J. Suarez went the furthest, retiring some years back as Commissioner of Customs.
And my father was in such a senior position and was very well respected because he was an Anglo-Indian. And I think that, and you're in the customs, and to be a collector of customs is not an easy thing to get to that kind of position. So what I'm saying is that people who get to senior positions, these are the people who have to hold the community flag high. They have to stand up and be counted as Anglo-Indians. But there are so many Anglo-Indians who don't even want to say they're Anglo-Indian. That frightens me.
Customs and police work in the harbour and the same shift, like they have their own thing. And we always, when on duty, went to see who the Anglo-Indian guy. The sergeant was more or less Anglo-Indian. And so we used to keep very close bonding. And
Loftus worked as an officer of customs, both at Madras and at Vizag ports. I asked him if gold smuggling happened in his time.
Gold was mainly with information, and I know the biggest hold we had was in table fans. One of the guys lifted up a fan and found it heavy, and then he had found good big gold chains in the fan. And we found every KDK fan had gold smuggled through. So they usually carried by passengers who would just carry us.
You had passengers also coming by sea?
Sea from Singapore. We had passenger ships, Rajola and State of Madras. They were regular ships, and every fortnight we had a ship coming through.
In Vizag, it was a different chase.
The ships used to anchor out of the roads, waiting to get a berth in the harbour, and that's where the transaction went. They dropped whiskey cases to the fishermen, who then brought it to shore, and our job was to catch them when they get to shore.
At Vizag?
At Vizag.
Royapettah is adjacent to Triplicane and has a sizable Muslim community. Anglo-Indians have had cordial relations with their Muslim neighbours for years. They have shopped at the well-known Meesahipet market.
Beef and mutton, whatever is available there, and tongue and brain and all that stuff, used to have all the spare parts. Yes.
But otherwise, on Saturdays and Sundays, Mummy will send me to the Jam Bazaar market for the fish. And just before that, I think it's one of those streets just before Jam Bazaar market, I used to go to the butchers there.
Meesahipet?
Yes, yes. And he'll say, come, Dore, come, sit. Sir, tea korandu Dore, marabon venama. He'll ask me which cut of meat I wanted. The butcher shop was for all the spare parts. I loved all the spare parts. Every time I come back from Australia, the day I arrive, Mummy will make chapatis and try it for me.
Anglo-Indians have stayed in the vicinity of the new college, which is a Muslim-run institution.
From Royapettah, the market, the bus that we used to take had to pass the new college, the boys, and the disasters and the commotions that they created in the bus as well. They're all just wonderful memories that would still linger.
Hundreds of Muslim girls have studied in St. William's School, which still shares a common boundary wall with the Muslim burial ground next door.
It was a very quaint sort of school compared to the schools now, because it was a small community and simple people and simple values. And it was days before the WhatsApp and the media invading our lives.
Many Anglo-Indians cook biryani, a Muslim dish, at home.
And the kids still love that. So every Sunday at home, it's either the coconut rice and bowl curry or the biryani. Still, in Perth.
The biryani has become so popular that in some ways there is cause for concern.
Even our food, our cuisine is changing. We have taken on that whole fascination of biryani, which was probably, I think, not a mainstream meal. right? That's become a mainstream meal. So it really saddens me to think that we are losing our identity in all shapes and forms.
The Amir Mahal, so that was our Sunday spot for cricket. All the boys would jump over the broken part of the wall, go and play cricket until they sent out the dogs which chased us back over the wall.
But when I was the chairperson, I got a lot of encouragement and support from the Muslim community, not from the Christians. Because the Christian bishops, etc., didn't want me to be there. Because I had supported a bill which they thought was anti-minority. All the bishops thought it was anti-minority, but actually it was a bill that safeguarded the rights of minority students and teachers. And many of the college these teachers were on my side, including NRAM, etc.
Augustine, do you think our nominated representatives, be they in parliament or in the legislative assemblies of various states, are doing enough to protect the interests and promote the community?
No, I personally feel that not enough is being done. It hurts the community very much when people get into the post and don't do anything for us. So there are several issues affecting the community. For example, central government has decided to give pension to unmarried, divorced and widowed daughters of government pensioners. So many don't know it. And people who do know apply. It takes years. I'm going across a case where the delay is 5 years by Central Excise, and using the RTI Act, I got the information. I'm giving pressure all sides. I have written to both the MPs also. I never received any reply till now. I'm very proud to say at this juncture that Dr. Beatrice D'Souza, though she is an ex-MP, ex-MLA, still when we refer cases to her, she's still putting on a letterhead and doing it. For example, that case which I told you, Central Excise. I told her, Madam, you talk to this man, the Additional Commissioner of Central Excise. He is the competent authority. Immediately she wrote a letter, she phoned him up, and that lady made a turnaround and she started getting a paper saying that it is sanctioned.
I spoke to a former MLA.
People want something done. They don't know the procedures. You're supposed to give it in writing. Then this goes to the corporation. And there they decide what is to be done, what is not to be done, and things like that. And there are certain jobs that you can't do. The government every year, they say that this is supposed to be done. This is essential works, which have to be done somehow or the other.
Okay, what was your greatest challenge as an MLA? What was it that frustrated you?
What frustrated me was that I could not get feedback from people.
It was a long time before an Anglo-Indian approached her with a project proposal.
Narcissus had called Mummy and said, can you help out? My son needs a road to be done in Pamal. Can you help? And then Ian came and met me. I said, this is a godsend. I'm getting a job to do. So he did everything. He went to the Panchayat. He got them to give the estimate. They told him how much it would be, how to do it, what it would cost and all that. And all that was done. Everything was done. He brought me the papers. He did it so meticulously. See, that's the thing which I liked about him. And I liked about Roy, because Roy also did it very meticulously.
Okay, in what way have you helped Augustine Roy's suburban front?
I have the whole list of items that were put forward and my funds sanctioned. But the follow-up had to be done on their side because I couldn't go there. But he needed to follow up and his whoever is with him in the whole thing.
Sandra remembers her first days as an MLA.
I met different people and different leaders and I asked them like, what do I do? How do I go about this? You will have to guide me. And they were very helpful to tell me what to do. Uncle Jerry Briggs was giving me information on how to do things and what to do and all. Jos Fernandez from Bangalore, he came all the way to meet me. And just to congratulate me, I hadn't heard of him also. And he congratulated me and he said, this is what you have to do. He was the first person to brief me.
He's a legend in Karnataka.
He was the first person to brief me.
Being the MLA for the community has its inconveniences naturally.
I got a call like that from Mrs. Samuel that 2 ladies were put in jail, and that too we have to be careful because women should not be put in prison at that time, or taken to the police station. Unless you're
Was it an all-women's police station? Or?
No, it wasn't. And I was, this lady had told me this, and I was so afraid because I was worried what to do. Should I go? I was really bothered. And then I called up the superintendent, the chief of police there. And I said, "Sir, what am I supposed to do? This is the situation." He says, "Don't worry." That's what I got, a lot of support from the bureaucracy.
Many missed the old Madras when life had an easy pace.
When I was here, it was all cycles or motorbikes. But now there are a lot of cars and a lot more pollution. But I suppose it's the way of life and people get used to it, accustomed to it. It is difficult for us when we come back for the first couple of days, maybe up to a week, I would say, for certain people.
Population-wise, it's a madhouse. Traffic, chaos. But I guess that's the way it is. One good thing I like in this place is, no matter how much you drive, they can put 4 lanes and they got 6 vehicles traveling. They never touch each other. They never bash each other. And no swearing, which is surprising, because I used to do a lot of swearing when I was here. What I've noticed here is only eye contact. You look, he looks, shake your head, keep moving. That is something like very rare you find in other countries.
I think Chennai as a city is become very overcrowded. I'm a bit worried how it's going to be in another 20 years, because it's been 20-30 years since we left, and to think another 20-30 years from now, if the population were to double, which is how I feel at the moment, I think Chennai would be, I don't know what kind of city. Very good improvements in Chennai. One of them is the metro, the shopping malls. I think the roads, the flyovers that they've done. Now these are huge projects. Personally, I think it's a very good job that the government or whomever has done, because these are big projects, expensive projects, and not only have they started it, but they've finished these projects. And I think it's very successful, very good, well done, Chennai.
Madras has also been seen as a literary city.
I love Madras, absolutely. For me, it's always a pleasure to come back here.
And whatever little interaction you've had with the community here,
Here.
What impressions have they left on you?
Certainly the impression that this is a much more vibrant center of Anglo-Indian culture. This is something that I've learned from books as well, I mean from old times, but also I was pleased to discover it and have rediscovered it with every fresh visit, so that somehow I come up with someone like Harry, and then suddenly I'm drawn into that group, and it's like I've never been away. Every time I see Betty, I get that feeling, so it's nice.
Alan, of course, is from Dehradun, and not far from him is the other famous Anglo-Indian writer from Mussoorie, Ruskin Bond. Ruskin is hugely popular in India, and especially in Madras, among the young and old of all communities. Merlin Suarez is proud to have read every book of his.
Ruskin Bond, everything about his is down to earth, it's very practical, it's all about the hills, it's all about animals, it's all about human beings, he writes so beautifully.
Another couple from the hills, Hugh and Colleen Ganser, have also been popular with the readers of Madras for their exceptional travel writing across the country and beyond for close to 5 decades. Their work of fiction, titled The Year Before Sunset, about the Anglo-Indian community in the Himalayas, was in fact the first publication of Anglo Inc., and the book was launched on 20th February 2012 in conjunction with the Madras Book Club, and followed up the next day with a lively open-air ball at Avadi. But let's get back on track. Michael Fernandez resided for 45 years in Royapettah before moving to his Ananaga home. I asked him about his days on the railways as a ticket inspector.
First, there were lots of Anglo-Indians when I joined. I worked under an Anglo-Indian inspector, Mr. Leslie Shatley. He was from Palawan. So it was good working under him.
And when I joined, there were a lot of Anglo-Indians in railways. And over the years, it's now come to a single digit, where we are only hardly 5 or 6 in the Chennai division and Southern Railway.
Can you name some of these Anglo-Indian
Yes, Lorraine is one. Then we have Philbert Kennedy, who's a cricket player.
Debbie Brogan.
Deborah Brogan, yeah. And we had an officer by name of Adrian Soff, who was the president of the Catholic Association. I'm still the general secretary of the Catholic Association. Yeah, I think prior to him there was a officer by name of Derek Rosario. He was a gazetted station superintendent.
What was your toughest moment as a railway employee?
I met a lot of tough moments, especially with big shots, who tried to throw their weight around with me, but I kept them. I did my work calmly. Everything went cool with me. Actually, I wanted to resign from the railways at one time when I was threatened by one of the assistant commissioners of police. That fellow was thrown out.
Do you think that the heydays of the Anglo-Indians are over in Madras?
No, I don't think so. It's diminished in a way, but I don't think so.
So there's a lot more yet to come.
Yes, of course.
I put forth a similar question to the rector of St. Bede's School.
No, community will be there forever, but then the pure community of Anglo-Indians will not last long, because one way towards modernization, mixtures have come inside, so that will go on.
There aren't many Anglo-Indians left in the city, for starters, and those that are around still, some of us, have been able to integrate within the city, and we've been able to take on different shades, I would say. And it's not like the old days. A lot of changes, but also in a good way, I would say.
Lines are blurring. So I think people look past communities these days for the most part, and I think they should. I think we should look at people as people. When I was growing up, I did have an identity crisis. The idea of being an Anglo-Indian used to bother me.
Andrea's formative years were in a totally non-Anglo-Indian environment.
I always used to feel like the odd one out to an extent. And it took me a long time to come to terms with the fact that, it's okay. It's okay to be this person. And I think I've been blessed with good friends who, love me for who I am and look past things like caste and community and things like that. So, yeah, if that could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. I think the more you open yourself to new experiences and new people, the better.
Would this approach lead to a loss of the Anglo-Indian identity, I ask?
That would depend on the person, and each individual goes on to make up the community. So it will ultimately depend on how the majority of the people are going to tune their thinking and their actions.
For Genevieve, the journey has been a little different. A supporting actor who has acted in over 100 Tamil films, she is married to a Telugu sportsperson and is known by her stage name of Sri Ranjani.
Lakshmi Madam, you must be knowing yesterday heroine. So her daughter Aishwarya, we were all neighbors. So she was the one who broke the ice one day at the location, like Jenny, and everyone said, like, who's Jenny here? And then they came to us. So now people are getting to know that yes, I do have this background. But I've been someone who's very quiet, I never wanted to why? Now I really feel proud saying yes, I am, and that my name is Genevieve, kind of. So yeah, it's a nice thing.
At Royapettah, we asked Felix about his identity as an Anglo-Indian.
The whole concept of being an Anglo-Indian wasn't something that a Royapettah child growing up was very aware of. I find myself here every day. In my work, in the community at large, there is nothing that I regret not having or anything of that sort.
Time may change many things, but as long as there is life, there is hope.